Good morning, friends. It's July 3rd. Tomorrow's July 4th, and people are going to be celebrating about the United States being so many years old and so on. To resume our story, back in the time of the Reagan years, Reagan Casey, Bucky Fuller wrote a book called Grunch of Giants, and he was seen as the kind, gentle genius, right? He was the engineer saint. He was kind of being used by the government to showcase the higher living standards we were planning, the better world, the brighter future. And there's kind of an existential crisis, you could say, indicated in his book, which is American Literature, Grunch of Giants, where he says the USA we have known is now bankrupt and extinct. And he points to income inequality greater than ever now. And we've had universities also weigh in on this, that we're no longer a real democracy. Jimmy Carter, former president, we're an oligarchy with unlimited bribery, like Citizens United or something. Money runs politics, politicians are bought. It's not the democracy of 1776. And so the patriots, the people who want to fight and have America be something great, we're in a conquered state, we're in a thraldom, we're in a slave state, a prison state. And the way we see that, it's obvious, is because the schools have censored our materials. Like, you can't go to the university and learn about this part of American literature that I share all the time. This volumes table, School of Tomorrow. Hey, I did find that timeline thing I was looking for much better. I was kind of belly aching in a previous video that I couldn't find something like this. Now, still, there's more we could do. Click on each one. Actually, if you click on these, you do get to a Wikipedia page, I think. Let's do a search, and let's search on Buckminster Fuller. We are trying to restore some integrity to this situation where all of our curriculum is basically shoved to the shelves. Nobody teaches this stuff, right? Like Patricia Ravazio did a survey at Stanford. I check on Princeton from time to time. I would say American literature has been derailed. And right now, in this slave state, when we get back to American literature and American history, we're going to tell it a little differently. We're going to let the oligarchy be to blame for these wars. You could see it under Reagan, right? Ollie North and all those people, they were just running around Congress. They were going to fight these wars whether we wanted them to or not. And it's kind of been like that ever since. A small group of think tanks funded by donors basically has unlimited power to start wars that the American people don't want. And it's doing it again, trying to with Iran. And my attitude is don't pretend that's the United States doing any of that. It's a lot of money. It's oil money, it's going to mercenaries, and if you're in the US military, say you live on a base and your kids are not being taught American history or American literature, no Martian math, none of this stuff that I'm showing you here, why do you think you're living in the United States? What gives you the right to think that? Because of the flag? Because of your passport? Those are kind of physical things. And I'm talking about metaphysical stuff. So, the School of Tomorrow is here to help try to restore the world game concepts to its proper place. And in saying refugees are to become tourists with tours of duty, that's just an overlay, right? Because we're all refugees, really. We're all just trying to make a living here on this planet. And we are all world game players. And right now we're in a difficult situation where we're being led to believe that there's legitimate nation state authority behind what we're doing. But I can tell you from my perspective and my ethnicity as a Quaker, I look around and I see what's being taught and I say, Now, is it all bad news or do I see any promising signs? Let's remember the record. I mean, Fuller did get a Medal of Freedom from President Reagan. At the same time, Grunch of Giants was coming out, and his chief collaborator on Synergetics was an intelligence guy with a lot of connections. So there is a network. Remember, Grunch of Giants was dedicated to the three women, one of whom wrote The Aquarian Conspiracy, which put a good spin on the word conspiracy. When Marshall McLuhan first met Bucky in person, he said, I've read your books and I'm ready to join your conspiracy, right? So we have the record is on our side. What we don't have is intelligent commentary. We have stupid journalism saying Bucky Fuller's a failure and, you know, a lot of garbage. I was in the Oregonian. I held up a Dymaxion map. Hey, he's a futurist. That was in the 80s. And then I was in the Oregonian again because I predicted hypertext kiosks. The web was new. There was no hypertext yet. And a couple of years later, they took me to a hypertext kiosk at Providence Hospital and said, there it is, Kirby, what you predicted in the paper. So I have a pretty good track record. But, we'll see what happens. I'm basically encouraging countries overseas outside the US to take this stuff up. It's on GitHub and elsewhere and help us. Help us by teaching how we don't get the time of day from our government, really. It's all locked up by the oligarchs. So, as far as the United States wanting to attack Iraq or Iran or all that kind of stuff, I don't see that. I see oligarchy. And if you're in the military, I don't know why you'd want to die for an oligarchy, but a lot of you are refugees. You got in there because there's benefits as well as risks. But I would think at the higher levels there'd be some kind of pushback in defense of the Constitution. I don't think it's treasonous or mutinous for me to suggest that if you're in the military, you might want to think about Bucky Fuller's position, given he was touted as the leading futurist for so long with domes in Afghanistan and talked with the Russians a lot. Things were going pretty well while he was alive. And I think people just thought when he died, well, we can't keep that up. Let's go back to our old ways. But, I don't think that's possible. So how are you going to tell your life story against this background? Because I think it's pretty strong now. I don't think the school of tomorrow is, like I say, I think we are the windmills. So do you want to fight us? If you do, it might be too late, actually. So that's where I'm coming from. I think we won already. So what are you going to do about it? Talk to you later.